برز بوس بخيراتي. Welcome.
Thank you very much for receiving me on Rudaw.
باشه. من قلت يعني ام نوا خلقی دا دگرن نوا کوچبران دا دگرن گازنا وان یا یکمین یا سرکه اوا 10% دبیجن چما سبب چیه که UNHCR همو رنگین آلیکاری سر ما قد کرنه چما و آلیکاری قد کریه
So UNHCR, but also the other humanitarian partners, whether it's the United Nations or the NGOs, including local NGOs, Kurdish NGOs, have decreased indeed their assistance to refugees, Syrian refugees, but also from other countries, and Iraqi internally displaced here in the Kurdish region of Iraq. We have done this choice because by and large, most of those displaced population are receiving already services through the public institution. They can go and enroll their kids into public schools. They can go to the public center. And here we really commend in particular the Kurdish authorities, the Kurdish regional government, for having accepted that the refugees, but also the Iraqi displaced, are able to have those services on par with the rest of the population through the public service provider. As a result, we are less needed, and this is very much a good thing at a time where, as we all know, there are crises all over the world. Recently Gaza, in the past Ukraine, Ethiopia, Bangladesh and Myanmar. So there was also less and less prioritization of Iraq by the donor countries, mainly the Western countries, and the US is our primary donor here in Iraq. And it's good that those displaced population now have access to public services provided by the Kurdish authorities.
باشه. اف هالوسطا يعني اف قطبنا آلیکاریه جالیه نتوین یک بوی و حتی کنگی بردوام بکه؟
It will last for the foreseeable future because we really believe that Iraq is in a position to deliver those services, quality services, accessible services to the displaced population. And we see it there every day. This morning I was with the Minister of Education and we opened a new construction site for 3 new schools in Erbil Governorate with the governor of Erbil as well. So there is an interest of the authorities to continue providing those services to all displaced population, Syrian, Turkish, Iranian, eventually Palestinian refugees, but also Iraqi who have been displaced in the past by the violence of Daesh, and to provide them the support through the public institution. For that, we need to continue receiving the support of our donors, and we count on the donors to continue helping us. But we do understand and agree that it is time for them, the donors, to go and look at a more pressing, urgent humanitarian needs elsewhere than Iraq.
يعني او آلیکاریا كبرج بوا دهاتا پیشکش کرن سپونسورین و گیم بونه يعني پرین و ادی و کبری نمانه.
We still do have money. For example, my organization, the UN Refugee Agency, is going to spend more than 100 million in Iraq this year. Since the beginning of the Syria crisis, we have calculated that we have spent more than 800 million, mainly in the Kurdish region of Iraq, through the generous funding of our donors, in particular, I repeat, through the generous funding of the United States, but also European countries, the European Union, Japan, who have allowed us to really help the authorities to receive those refugees and those Iraqi displaced in the best way possible and providing them with their survival means. So the money is decreasing, but we have established system, through the support to the authorities, for those refugees and Iraqi displaced not to be left completely abandoned and not to suffer from us having, unfortunately, to decrease a little bit our presence.
مجارة كدنها يا برز نيكولاس و نافندين إقامة وفورمان كامبان در خستن بتشن الجه برن الجهة كيدن بجي كرن خلق غازن عندك كاد بيجا بري مثلا جبوه أمش جهة خو بتشن مثلا وكنمونا الباريزغا هوريكي هوليري البحركي هيا زمت بحر كديتي أنا جهة كي نزكي هوليري خلق نشارن بتشن لويدري إقامين خو دريج بكنو وكوتش بار براني وان دهاتوان تنا يعني جبوان مصرفة كي زيادة سبب شبو وقف تشتغل يعني بري الكامبان إقامة ددان فورم الكامبان ددان نها أدي برنا جهة كي أو جي قالك جه دوديوان جي إقامينا.
As we have less money indeed, we need to find more cost-effective manners to deliver our services. And one of them is indeed to help the authorities to register refugees and to give them the residency permit. Here in Kurdistan, it's called the humanitarian residency permit. And so we have been working very well with the Minister of Interior, with Asaish, with the residency department, who have really given us their full cooperation to find more cost-effective manner to deliver the certificate for the refugees. I think that by regrouping those services in one single center, it makes the life of everybody easier, because in that center in Baraka, not only do we have UNHCR, we have our protection partners who can look at issues of child protection, whether people need some help in terms of mental health support, but also we have Asaish residency and the services of the Ministry of Interior in the same building, so that refugees can go in one day and tick all the boxes to have their residency permit renewed.
مجارك دن هيا قالكي جرينجا تبخوا بيهتري 20 سالن بمجارين كوچبر و پنابر مجول دبيل قالك ولاتين جدا يعني من ديت من سيفيا تخوند قالك كس هنا بنافي UNHCR تلفوني خلقي هذا كنت بيجن أمي وبشنن ولاتي سيام إعادة التوطين قاشاجينا هاي وجي هيا يانا يعني بنافي و تلفوني خلقي هذا كنو برانج وان دستينو أمي وبشنن درفة وبرجي دچنو ناچن درفة.
Unfortunately, this is a reality everywhere I have walked and everywhere where UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, is present. People try to use our name to get money from the refugees who are already often in a very socioeconomically vulnerable situation, to get money from them to offer them dreams like moving to Europe or to America or to Australia. It doesn't work like that. We are very aware of those fraud schemes and we are fighting against them. So I repeat, all the services provided by the United Nations and UNHCR in particular are free of charge, always, all the services. Nobody should pay to receive support from UNHCR or from the NGOs or from the UN. So we are doing campaign with the displaced population to inform them about the fact that they should never pay, because those are scams. Those are corrupt people who are trying to abuse our names to get money from them. But we are also investigating those cases. So everyone who has such information that people are asking in our name or the name of other partners for money for services should refer to us. We will investigate, and we have great cooperation also with the law enforcement authorities here in the Kurdish region of Iraq to investigate and punish those people because they are really criminals.
Okay. ودمي کوچبرک چاوش بو ولات سیم دشاندن. رینویچن.
It's very difficult for refugees to move away from the first country where they have found asylum. But I think what is more important here in your question is really the fact that refugees and internally displaced persons have been well received in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Okay. They have been given access to schools, they have been given access to health. Many of them work on daily labor wages. It's not a permanent job, it's not necessarily in the formal sector, it's not as a civil servant, but still they can find a way to get their bread and butter. So what we need to recognize also is that refugees here are well treated by both the authorities, but also, and I must really commend, the Kurdish communities who have seen the refugees are really their brother and sister and have opened their door, but also their heart to make sure that those people will feel safe here. Going to another country is going to be extremely difficult. Only a very few who have very specific medical case, maybe some groups who are part of minority, ethnic, religious, or other minority will need to be sent to third country because their survival chance here in Kurdistan are very minimal. But the overwhelming majority, 99% of the refugees here, can wait until the time comes for them to return to their country of origin in safety and dignity. This is not the case for Syria now, but one day, hopefully, they will be able to return.
تاني أزبيت خازن بزانبم هون وان دشينن دروا يان أولاتين قدتشن وان كوچ بران خازن متوده بزانبم جبركو بريز نيكولاس قالك برس جمراتين راستي يعني از بسالانه بمثلا كوچ بران رجي مجولم 10% دبيجن عدالت دشاندنا كوچ بران دجبو ولات السيم تنيا هناك دبيجن بران ددن جبوكو دوس يوان بدن سر جبو دروا ورن شاندن كوروبسيون هيا دبيجن تب مسؤولي بربرسي يكم ايفي دوسيي تب مسؤولي يكم كوچبران الى عراقي هون وان كوچبران دشينن ولات السيم يان ولات وان دخوازن.
So let me repeat and be very clear. Nobody should pay for any services from UNHCR. So if you are being asked by people outside UNHCR or by people within UNHCR for money, you need to denounce those people. We have complaints mechanisms. We can investigate those cases. And staff, if my staff in UNHCR are guilty of that kind of behavior, they will be fired, immediately fired, because it's totally unacceptable. Now, for those who will be selected by UNHCR based on their very specific vulnerabilities, medical case, somebody who cannot be treated here, maybe a family who has children with disability because it's extremely difficult for them to survive in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Maybe people who are belonging to certain professional groups or who are at risk of being arrested or detained because of who they are in terms of belonging to minority groups. Those very few cases, we will process them and ask some resettlement countries to accept them. Here we have the generous support of the US, Canada, European country, Australia, but their generous support is limited. It's not a large number of people, and globally, we have less than 1% of refugees who are going through UNHCR, but also with the support of IOM, the migration agency, be able to be resettled to a third country like the Western world.
بلانك ويا مثلا جبو 5 سالان جبو كوچبران هيا مثلا UNHCR جبو كوچبرين كل فردمينن از پیشی بحثا كوچبرين كرد بكمي كوج سوري وروجاوي كردستاني كوچبري وربونه بلانك ويا 5 سالي وكنمونه جبوان هيا بريس نيكولاس.
We are just entering into our next planning process for 25-29.
Okay.
And really the goal of this plan is to reinforce the capacities of the Kurdish authorities, the Kurdish public service provider, to have the capacity to deliver services for the refugees, eventually also for the Iraqi internally displaced, but also for the local population, so that we can improve the quality of services, if you are speaking about school, health, electricity, water, environment, preservation of the environment, for everyone on an equal footing. Because we want also to give back to the Kurdish communities, because they have been so generous in helping and hosting displaced population. It's time for us, the international community, through UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, but also other UN agencies and the non-governmental organization, to give back to those Kurdish communities.
از چون دهوکه لوی داره کامپاشاریا هیا بهتری 10-15 هزار کوچبرین ایزدی این شنگال لوی داره نه 10% پیش روزا مچیه UNHCR جبوان چه تفکره؟
We all agree that the camps for the Iraqi internally displaced population are not sustainable. I was in Dohuk as well last week, and all the authorities, municipal authorities, governorate authorities, including the new administrator of Zaho, who has a very good vision about what can be done in Zaho in particular, have all said the same thing. We need to find dignified solution for those Yazidi population. They cannot stay in the camp. This is not a life. it certainly broke your heart and broke my heart to see the living condition in which those Yazidi displaced are living these days. So we need to find solution. One of the solutions for those who want will be to return to Sinjar. But some will not be able or not be willing to return to Sinjar. So we need to also give them some solutions such as local integration, remaining outside the camp, or turning the camp into formal settlement for them to have a decent life. And we are working very much with the federal authorities, but also the Kurdish authorities at all levels, municipal, up to the governorate, or to the Ministry of Interior, to see what kind of solution can we offer to those populations. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that they have a free and informed choice of opting for the situation, the solution, which is the most specific to their own personal circumstances.
اوکی لگور نرینا تا سبب چیه کو کوچبرین شنگالی و ناگرن؟ چما و ناگرن؟
It's not about my opinion which matters, it's about what the Yazidi displaced are telling me. So a number of Yazidi displaced have said, yes, they will be willing to return, but they need a bit of support. And that's what the federal government is trying to do through the lead of the Ministry of Migration and Displacement to try to support through financial support, but also reconstruction of Sinjar for those who are willing to go back. But many others have told me, I don't want to go back because there's still a lack. I feel that I will be insecure in Sinjar. I feel that I won't be able to put my kids in school, or that there will be no running water in my house, or my house has been destroyed, and I don't want to go back into those conditions because my return will not be sustainable. And if I may, one thing which has really stayed with me, a lot of the Yazidi have told me, you want me to return, but there has been no real justice and no real reconciliation around what has happened 10 years ago in Sinjar. I still have my parents who are not even buried, but their bodies are in the garden of our house. We were unable to bury them. We know they are still mass grave. If you have been a rape survivor, somebody who has been abused sexually, and we know that for the Yazidi women, that was one of the most egregious, terrible violation of their being. It's extremely difficult to return to a place where you have witnessed and be the victim of such abuse. So we need to respect the will of different people. Some will be able to return to Sinjar, and the federal authorities are committed to help them reintegrate, but others, it's too early for them to return because the trauma and the lack of services upon return, the lack of livelihood opportunities, the lack of a sense of security means that they feel that it is not a good time for them to return to Sinjar. That doesn't mean that in the long term they will not return, but we need to do it in a pace, in a timely manner, according to the free and informed consent of the people.
دبکو دما پیشتا کامپ بینگرتن؟
The putting people in camps when they have been displaced by violence, armed violence, conflict, discrimination, persecution is never a good solution. UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agencies, have more than 70 years of experience. And we never advise any government, any authorities to put people in camps because those camps are very costly. Those camps are segregating the population instead of helping the displaced population to integrate and to have an opportunity to get a living by themselves, by working in the community, therefore economically contributing to the local economy. If you put them in the camp, you put them apart, and it's never a good solution. It's never a good solution also because that means you need to have services only for the camps. What we want to do, the United Nations, is to build, to strengthen the public services for everyone, not only the people in the camp, but also the local population. Because we know that in Iraq, like in many countries in the world, the local population also deserve our attention. So we have always been against the camp. Now, there's no point of coming back in history. Camps have been established, and I'm sure there was some reason behind this decision. But what we need to find is a solution out of the camp. And that's where UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, is taking a lead in advising the authorities or what are the different options, the different models, the alternative model, so that the IDPs and the refugees who are residing in the camp will be able to make different choices which are adapted to their own personal circumstances.
Aha, yani مثلا کوچبرین کل ویداری دمینن بیشتر میین کردین جو سوریه هاتنه جروج آوا هاتنه هر لور دمینن لسوریه حتی نه روشنا آرامه هن چش بوان دکن چش بوان پیشنیار دکن جبو پیش رو جوان و چه دفکرن.
So the Kurdish Syrians who have come and have been generously hosted here are more or less 270,000, more or less. So it's a significant number, but it's also not such a big number that the state, the Kurdish institution and the communities are not able to absorb these additional demographics. And the proof being in the pudding, we know that the Syrian refugees have been welcome and have well integrated. Most of them, by the way, 70%, do not live in camps, but actually live in urban setting, in Erbil, in Douk, in Suleimania, have been establishing themselves. They pay rent, they pay services, they contribute to the local economy, they send their kids to the local school, and there is a good social cohesion between the refugee communities and the Kurdish communities. Partly also because most of the Kurdish have been refugees at some point in their life. You went through very difficult time here in Kurdistan during a previous regime. So the authorities, but the communities know very well what it means to be a refugee. And they want to treat their Syrian brothers and sisters the same way that they were treated when they were in exile in surrounding countries or in Europe. Because they know that one day, like the Kurdish authorities know, they will come back to their country and they will rebuild the country. All the leadership of most of the leadership of the communities in Kurdistan have been refugees. Every time I meet a minister, a governor, a municipal, they tell me about their refugee experience. But they had a chance to be educated and know they are the leader of this community. Trust me, one day, those Syrian refugees who are now in Kurdistan will be the leader, the new leader in Syria. They will be able to rebuild their country. It's a question of time. We know that history will mean that at some point, Syria, and Northeast Syria in particular, will regain its stability, will regain its economic power, will regain its culture. And it's very important that at this point, those Kurdish Syrians can go back because this is their land.
Okay.
And they will be able, because they have been well treated here, to be the next generation of leaders in Syria.
گرینگه یعنی دبیت تدبیجی گرگه کوچبر داوی وگرن ولاتی خواه لی بریز نیکولاس هنه کوچبر لی داری هنه 12 سالن ورن 13 سالن ورن من هنه کتینه 15 سالن ورن تزانی یک 15 سالان جهه کی به وک پنابر کوچبر بچاور مثلا الولاتی که اروپا 3 4 5 6 سالان ده به همولاتی وی ولاتی وک نمونه مثلا سوید و اسکندناویا 4 5 سالان ده به همولاتی لآلمانیا 5 6 سالان ده به همولاتی کانادا 3 4 سالان ده به همولاتی للوی داره هر به فرم و اقامه ساله که
I would love that what you have described will be the reality in those Western countries. It was the case a long time ago, and I'm sure that a lot of Kurdish Iraqi were able to get a second nationality, Canadian, American, French. I know that there is a long connection between my country and the Kurdistan, and I know that a lot of Kurdish Iraqi have been able to get a second nationality. Very unfortunately, this is less and less the case. There are more and more populist rhetorics in the Western world which push back against asylum seekers and refugees. We are in a situation where the asylum space is being restricted, where people are not even treated properly when they arrive as an asylum seeker. Here, for example, here in Kurdistan, it's you immediately can go to a health center and get treated. No, in Europe, most of the countries don't give access to medical treatment immediately. You need to wait 3, 4, 5 years. You need to have your claim having been assessed by a tribunal or an administrative process to be recognized as a refugee before you can get access to medical care or to put your children in a school. So that's why we are so proud of the partnership with the Kurdish authorities, because here you are doing it differently and you are doing it right. So I think it's important now that instead of looking at Europe and North America as the model, I think those countries should look at Kurdistan region of Iraq as the model on how to treat refugees. It's the reverse.
اوکی گلک سپاس نونر UNHCR کمیسریا بلند یا کوچبران یا نتوین یک بوی العراق جو نیکولاس بوز میوانه مبو تماشاوان هیجا هیوی دکم چه پرسنت سری واده هبن دوی هف پیوینه دا ما آنی به زمان بر پرسیار یکم یه کوچبر و پنابران العراق بقاسی کم من دکاری بو من پرسین واج وی جامعی کرن مالا و آوا تماشا کر زور زور سپاس گلک سپاس و بخیر هاتی کردستانی بخیر هاتی روداوی هرابی
Those pass for Rudaw for always shedding light on those situations, those humanitarian cases. You have been at the forefront of educating the population about what is being done for those refugees and those Iraqi, not only for the UN, but also for the Kurdish authorities and the communities. So those pass to you.
گلک سپاس زور